He's one of the forethinkers of the whole scene. So he's basically one of the guys who invented low-cost 3D printing by searching for a machine which can replicate itself. That was the original goal. He has a printer with his name on. Normally he wears a shirt where it says, what does it say, Joseph?
Everyone is a maker, only I'm a printer.
Yeah, so I think it's a clever thing to name a product after yourself. Makes you famous.
Okay, well, you are stealing all my good lines, so
I'm leaving the stage, so please welcome Josef Pru.
Okay. So, thank you that all of you came here at this early hour, and I want to thank Florian for inviting me here, and I will do a bit more of an introduction of myself. So again, as he said, my name is Josef Pru. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's at Josef Pru. So I need more followers, as everyone. If you want to check more info about me, it's at Josef Pru at CZ. So I am one of the RepRap core developers. As he said, RepRap stands for Replicating Rapid Prototyper. It's one of the project. Well, it's the project which started all this personal 3D printing. For those of you who don't know much about 3D printing, I have a couple of slides about it. It is nothing new. 3D printing has been around for almost 30 years. So if you think it's a new thing, it actually is not. Before it was mostly called rapid prototyping because it was expensive and it was only for companies. But thanks to a project like RepRap, it became as cheap that you can actually afford it at home. So if you want to build RepRap and you can do it yourself, you can do it for, I don't know, 300 euros, which is quite, well, it's cheaper than iPhone. So the difference between 3D printing as an additive process compared to the milling or some other subtractive process is that usually the 3D printers can be much simpler, so they can be at your home on your tabletop and you can do stuff. You don't have to have a huge building with big expensive machines, and it also can create objects which are not possible to be made other way. So how does the thing which made me famous look? This is one of my printers. Unfortunately, I haven't seen any of those here, but I don't like to brag about myself, but I think it's one of the most used 3D printers on this planet. And, well, how does the 3D printing works? I usually use the time at the presentation to do some questions, so I hope you will cooperate. So, who of you knows what 3D printing is? Raise your hand. Wonderful. So, who of you owns a 3D printer? Okay. And which of those are RepRaps? Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. So, again, 3D printing is not a rocket science. It's really simple. Basically, you take a 3D object in a computer and you virtually slice it into thin slices, and then you try to recreate all those slices in real life. In the method, the printers I develop, it's done by fusing, liquid molten plastic into the slices. And you can see here, this is one slice of a whistle, and the printer just goes along those paths and squirts hot melted plastic. When it's done, it raises the head and it finishes another layer. So after it's done, it creates a whistle. So, I hate this slide because it always makes just black blob in the middle. But, well, here you can see a couple hundred whistles printed. And why I'm showing it, 3D printing is the biggest advantage of 3D printers is that they don't care if all the objects are same or not. So 3D printing is allowing you to create personalized objects. I was printing all those whistles to conferences I was going to at the beginning, a couple of years ago, before. Back then, nobody knew what 3D printing is, and nobody believed me that it can actually work. So I used to give away some trinkets, and whistle was a good example, as it was functional. But one friend of mine stated that it's not actually the way I was doing it is not as interesting, because all of those whistles were same, which is not effective. If you are doing hundreds and hundreds of the same object, it's much more effective to go to China and have the molds done, and actually, well, let the Chinese manufacture thousands of those, and it will be much cheaper and much prettier. So what I've done to elevate the advantage of 3D printing, I started to get the lists of names of people attending those conferences, and I personalized all the whistles for their names. As you can see, there is, how do you call that in English? Well, the starting letters of their names. And the 3D printer don't care about if all the whistles are same or if all of them are different. So that was wonderful. Unfortunately, when I gave them out to the conference management, they didn't handle the, giving away the right whistle to the right person. So people were bringing the wrong whistles. But, well, I proved the point. What is also interesting about 3D printing is that it allows you to share real things worldwide through the internet. There's a story also with this whistle. It was created here in Germany by a friend of mine whose nickname is, I think, Zago. Yes. And he created the whistle, printed it out. It's wonderful. It worked. And he shared it online, and only an hour or two afterwards, people in New York were also having the same whistle in the hand, only thanks to the power of 3D printing, because they were able to download the model and print it themselves. If you would want to manufacture something here in Germany and ship it over to New York, it would take, well, much longer time. And, well, we actually can transport it there. But, well, in the time when we will be flying to different planets or doing Mars missions, you don't always have the opportunity to send the real stuff to, you don't know, the spacecraft or whatever. So you can just email or send the object and they can print it there. So I will do a quick history lesson about the RepRap. So RepRap started as a project on the University of Bath in Britain. It was started by Dr. Adrian Boyer. It was year 2006, and they started a small lab, and they had an idea that they could do machine which self-replicates itself. Fortunately, Adrian had an idea in his head. If you are trying to do machine which self-replicates itself, you ultimately will be able to sell only one, because the other ones will be printed on that one you just sold. So they made it open source. I don't know how familiar are you with open source licenses or principles. That basically means that all the parts of the printers which are under the RepRap project are licensed under GNU GPL licenses. That means you can do whatever you want with it, you can build it, you can even sell it, you don't have to give us anything. There's only one catch. If you improve the design, you should give the changes back under the same license. So that's how we try to ensure that nobody is ripping our intellectual property for the wrong reasons. Unfortunately, there's a lot of companies which are borrowing the know-how we created and not, well, giving back. But what can we do about that? So in the same year, 2006, there was a first replicated part. But, well, there was a chicken and egg problem. If you have self-replicating machine, what machine will create the first one, right? But as I said, 3D printing is almost 30 years old, so they had a rapid prototyper which could print their first machine, which actually printed this first part, which looks like crap, but it's important. This is the first machine which was released. It's called Darwin, and it was really hard to build. It took a lot of time to print it. It took a lot of time to assemble it. It wasn't printing well, but it was a start, and you still could see some of the DNA of this printer in some of the machines around here. There's only, I think, around 10 of these built. Back then it costed, I think, £4,000 to build one, which was a lot, but still way cheaper than any commercial machines. But, well, the development went on. This was actually designed by a guy named Ed Sells. He now works for 3D Systems. They have a booth over there. And later on, they tried to make the design much simpler, easier to build, much quicker to self-replicate, because, well, it was a good point to work with, and it created Mendel. Well, there's a good thing I should talk about. If you look at the printer, it doesn't actually self-replicate itself completely, because, well, it's not really effective, and we still can't print electronics and some of the metallic parts. But the idea is that that we are printing all the parts which are complex and hard to manufacture by any other way. And so we print those, and you should be able to get the rest in your local hobby store, buy the electronics. Well, you can do the electronics yourself if you are familiar with, well, etching and soldering and stuff like that. But it's really, nowadays it's available really cheaply online everywhere. And so it kind of self-replicates. It's a good point for the future, but right now, if we want to have some widespread adoption, it's not really effective if you have to print the printer for tens of hours. Right now, the simplest designs take about 12, 13 hours to print. Well, and that's about the time I actually came into the project, and it was really wonderful. That's why what I'm going to talk about later, about my story, which I think can be inspiring for a lot of you. But, well, before that, the project was completely run by the university, and nobody was, well, contributing to it that much. But I simplified the design. Well, I can imagine that I'm not the only one, but I was really lazy to build the old design, which was really hard to build. It took a long time. And out of my laziness, I made it simpler. And actually, a lot of people started to use it. So you can see a lot of those. This is, I think, the second version in my massive workspace. And there's tens of thousands of those. And we could talk about RepRap for a long time, but I'm not sure how that would keep you interested for a long time. So if you want to check more about RepRap, there's a site, reprap.org, reprap.org, and you can find all of those designs. There are wonderful things. There are tens of designs. How to say it? Sharing the DNA together. There's actually a wonderful project you should check out too in Spain. It's called Clone Wars, where people actually keep the heritage tree of the different printers. So one printer prints parts for another printer, and they keep that one prints another printer, and they have heritage of, I think, 600 or 700 printers. So Google Clone Wars. But I want to talk now about my story. I know it's not completely in sync with the talk title, but I think it can inspire a lot of you into doing stuff like I did, or if it won't inspire you in that way, it can, well, give you a hint what young people can do with the products you sell here or you want to buy for your kids. Depends. So, I'm still young. I just turned 24, and what happened to me was a crazy ride. Because, well, I'm doing this for 5 years. I started at 19, and right now, at my age, I travel the world and I do speeches and I help people. And actually, I kind of made something which means something. But it all started when I was on high school. You know, normal kid. I didn't know what to do, and well, roughly around the time the iPhone 3.D came out, I think in Czech Republic, which was like a couple of years after the rest of the world. But anyways, I did a small hack that we actually were able to control an RC car with it. The point is not about the RC car. The point is that I shared it on the internet, and I found out, which was crazily awesome, that if you share something on the internet, people read it and people share it, and it can, well, make something change. So this actually got mentioned on Gizmodo. I don't know if you guys read Gizmodo. It's one of the biggest gadget webs. So that was a huge success for my first project, and it got me hooked with O'Reilly. So I was writing, I think when I was 18, a chapter for a book called iPhone Hacks. It's still available as ebook, but I don't suggest you buy it because, well, it's a bit outdated. It's, well, 6 years ago. I don't think you can have a big use of that. But the point is that it motivated me to work on stuff and share it with people. Even though back then I didn't understood all that much the power of open source as I do now, and I think I will get back to it in the talk. But it when I started to work on the 3D printers, it motivated me to share all the thoughts I did. So here is a first print out of my printer, I think. It's shot glass. There's a tradition, if you build a new printer, the first object you print is a shot glass, so you can pour a drink and you can celebrate the newborn printer. It started to be crazy because I designed that printer, I shared it, and I saw that people around the world started to build it. And I was walking, you know, on the street in Czech Republic, and nobody had an idea what's happening, and I only knew it from the internet. So it seems really surreal, you know, that you are kind of famous everywhere in the community, but nobody knows about it. And if you talk to somebody, nobody ever, you know, listens to you because it sounds like a crazy idea which could never work. But it took almost a year until I met somebody who built my printer for the first time. And that was, I think, here in Germany, in Aachen. Because, well, we had a first workshop where people came together and built all those printers together at the workshop. So here, well, I should do something about those images because you can see only a big black blob. But that's the suitcase with roughly 10 printers worth of parts printed on a 3D printer, which I flew with to Aachen, and loads of random people I never saw came together and built 10 of new machines which I designed, and it seemed really crazy. And as I said, and the story became crazier and crazier, and again you can't see a thing, but as I was saying, that nobody, the weird part about that you do something which is known somewhere, and at where you live, nobody knows about it. It changed when I got invited to speak at TEDx Prague. Do you watch TEDx videos or TEDx conferences? You do? Only one? You do too? Okay, so you can search for my name and TEDx, and you can make fun of me because that was my first talk ever. It was for 400 people, and I don't remember anything what I said there because I was so scared. I just remember how I went on stage and then how I went back, and I never saw the video because I'm too scared to see it. But well, there's also a really funny story how I got there. Do we have time? I think we have time for funny stories. I was going for my friend's birthday party, and back then I was broke, so I didn't want to buy a bottle of booze or something. So I just printed him out a whistle. And I came to his birthday party, I gave the whistle to him, and he was already drunk as hell, so he just left it somewhere. And some random guy who went to the birthday party too picked it up and was checking it out, and he saw it. And it was really interesting for him. And a couple of days later, he actually approached me that he is one of the organizers of Prague, TEDx Prague, and he wants to invite me to talk about 3D printing. So, well, my life is full of these crazy stories where you never know what happens, what do you do. And after that, I think 2 weeks, I had a TEDx talk at Vienna. So that one is in English, so you could possibly understand it. Also, really funny video, I saw that one, so it's really amusing. That was my second talk and my first talk in English, so enjoy. And yeah, well, the story went on, and everybody still thought that it's just some kind of playing. Nobody believed me. My parents were always saying, well, you should screw those 3D printers and you should do the college because the degree is the thing you should have and not play on the internet. And I started to do the workshops myself. This is from the first workshop I ever had. And this guy is actually quite famous. He's working for Adobe. And well, a lot of those interesting people were seeking 3D printers at this early stage. Back then, there were no companies selling full printers. There were no MakerBot, no Ultimaker, nothing like that. And the story got even crazier. I started to be on TV. This is from TV show. I don't know how should I explain it to you. It's something like if you would be in US, if you would be at Letterman. Do you know that? Big, well, late night show. This show had like Dalai Lama and British Queen and me. And so, as I said, crazy story just because of the fact that I started sharing what I did on the internet. And well, you think it's silly to put your small little projects online and share it with somebody, but it can turn crazy. So I started to build my company. Here I'm fixing my office, then it's fixed, and we are smoking hookah and working on a printer. That's, I think, 2 years ago. Now I have fancy offices, and I would think that the sweet spot is that I actually appeared on the Forbes cover in Czech when I was 23, which is completely bonkers, if you think about it. As I said, just because I shared the idea with people and worked with it, and people liked it. So, my point for this talk, and I hope it will somehow motivate you in doing what you like, is that you should do whatever you enjoy and share it, because now with the internet it's the best time to do so. And well, I would say that's the end of my talk. So if you have any questions about 3D printing or what I do about RepRap, we can do so now. Florian promised that he will be here and ask me some cheesy questions, but he kind of vanished. So you have to take his spot. So, do we have any questions about anything I said about RepRap, about 3D printing, about whatever? Wonderful. Do we have a microphone? It's important because we are recording it, so the question will be also recorded.
Hi, Joseph. It was really nice to listen to you, although I came a bit late. Okay. My question is, because I'm building a new 3D printer at the University of Magdeburg, and I wanted to know what is the future of Delta printers, because most of the printers in the market, what you see right now, are Cartesian form of printers. So what about Delta printers? Because a lot of people say it's important to have a heated chamber, and that is generally possible in Cartesian form of printers. So well, what do you think about the Delta printers and the heated chamber?
Okay, so that's a bit of a technical question, but doesn't matter. So the printers are shown in the slides. They were Cartesian, which means that the head moves in normally like that. But Delta printers work on different principle. You can see, for example, Delta Tower over there. You should go check it out after the talk. So the difference in the mechanical way, I don't think it really matters. It's whatever suits your needs best. Delta printers, I think, are worse at doing stuff, other stuff than just printing. If you want to have, 5 or 6 things on the head moving around. But I don't think actually that the Delta Tower doesn't allow you to make a heated chamber. The other thing is that unfortunately the heated chamber is patented by Stratasys. So you shouldn't do it anyway. So, but fortunately there is a lot of new cool materials which does not require a heated chamber. And well, a little sneak peek, I think the new printer I'm designing wouldn't be even having a heated bed. As what I do, I specialize in making super cheap, easy to make printers for regular people. I don't try to be professional as a lot of companies try to be professional or try to seem to be professional. Well, does that answer your question? Okay.
Almost.
Okay, so do you have any additional question? Okay.
Hi, I have one question. Why did you choose the triangular form of your printer?
So actually, that was I simplified the previous model, which was triangular. But the triangular shape actually is much easier to build. If you were building the cube frame, it was extremely hard to make it a cube. It seems easy, but when you are building it and you are trying to square it for a couple tens of hours, it starts to get boring, and then you move the printer and it's skewed again. So that's where it's much simplicity. I go by KISS, keep it simple, stupid. So the triangular form was much easier. And if you are interested, there's a wonderful thing about what we do. All the printers we usually design in RepRap are designed in OpenSCAD, which is basically programmed. The files are not designed in something like SolidWorks or Autodesk. They are coded like, put a cube here, divide something here, or add something here. So this text form allows us to use stuff like GitHub. Is any of you software developer? Okay. So we can use the same version control for the 3D objects as for the software. And actually GitHub supports viewing of 3D files, STL files. So if you see my printers at GitHub, you can compare all the files, and they can actually do diffs between the versions. So you can see how the design changed over time, and you can compare two different printers, how all the parts changed. So it's really wonderful. If you want to dig deeper into how, for example, I simplified the thing, it's a really good way to check it out. Okay, we have a question over there. I'm not sure if you can come. Wonderful.
I have a question about the complexity of the printed parts. How complex is it, and is there any need for hollow structures or something in this?
Okay, so that's really a generic question, but it's a good question. When you are printing, as I was, well, I didn't have a really good example, I admit that, but we are laying plastic on something. So if you are printing something like a mushroom, where you have a stem and then you have the head, you need support to print the head or the cap of the mushroom. So the software can generate the support structure, which is additional part which can be simply broke off from the object. So you can print more advanced geometries. And actually with 3D printers you can create much more complex objects than with milling or lathing, because you can create even inside structure. Good example for that is the whistle I showed at the beginning of the talk, because if you would want to mill the same part, you won't be able to, because there's, well, hollow chamber inside. You would have to mill it from two pieces and put it together. But with 3D printers, you can do it at one go. But, well, we could talk about this for hours and hours. So if you are interested in more detailed questions, we can speak about the talk. If we have some other questions, we can ask. Otherwise, Florian is here, and he can ask the cheesy questions he wanted to ask at the beginning.
Any more questions for Josef? Everybody's shy?
Okay, ask me the cheesiest question you have.
The cheesiest question. What's about the girls on your Facebook profile? Is it that if you invent a 3D printer that the girls like you?
Okay, well, I think I should show the picture then.
Can you?
I think I can.
Okay, besides talking about...
but this is getting really cheesy, man.
Yeah, but you asked for the most cheesiest question. So second question, what's about this Forbes cover? Were you featured on Forbes?
Yeah, I was featured on 30 Under 30. Okay. And also they had a cover story on me. The Forbes was actually quite funny because they were writing about one of the competing companies in Czech which did a lot of marketing, but they didn't have a functioning product. And they pushed it to them just before the issue was finished, so they didn't have time to check all the facts. But fortunately, the writer had a lot of professionality, so he checked afterwards, and he actually realized that nobody cares about that company, and they actually kind of ripped off everyone. So, but he found me almost everywhere, and so we got a couple of coffees, and I told him something about 3D printing, and boom, half year later, I was on the cover of a Czech Forbes, which is really funny. And now I owe you the story about this. I thought this image is really funny because I'm geeky. I mean, I don't seem that geeky now, but I used to be way more geeky. So I was wearing that shirt and 3D printed glasses, and I had a speak. And one of the famous Czech actors was with me, and some girls came in, and they saw me talking, so they came here, and he snapped a picture. And I think it really captures the geekiness, you know, because, you know, shy geek sitting there and all the ladies around. Well, that's just fun. Anyway, so do you have any more questions?
Yeah, one more. Any more questions in the audience? Okay. So you talked about a company who ripped off the customers, as you said, or I mean.
Well, they did too by shipping non-functioning printer, and you know what I hate most now about 3D printing is that it's really overhyped. All these companies competing with each other, they do use strong marketing. Not all these claims they state are 100% true, and they are competing, so it escalates. And that creates the fact that people are expecting too much from the machines. You know, they hear all the time from media, it can print organs, and it can print food, it can print guns, and whatever. And if you are one of those companies and then you ship the printer which, well, barely works, you know, it's just ripping off the customers, but it also kind of ripped off the community because, well, when you have a company which starts from a green field and in 2 months they have functioning prototype and they say they did all the research by themselves, what can you do in 2 months? You are not even able to write a thesis in 2 months.
Yeah. So what you're basically referring to is that everybody's building on the RepRap work, on your work, on the community work. Everybody's building up on each other. What do you think? What will RepRap community look like in probably 5 or 10 years? So will anybody still remember, or is it like, oh, MakerBot invented everything?
Well, that's a really good question. If it will stay like it is now, I think unfortunately we will fade to the side. But I have some ideas which are for longer discussion than we have time, how to kind of switch the odds in the favor of RepRap. I think that the point now is that we should create few designs which are easily manufacturable and in the professional looking way or product looking way. So there's something for the RepRap vendors and designers to sell so they can fund the development. Because most of the companies which are borrowing from the RepRap are not giving any funding back and not even the technology. So we have to do this, otherwise the project will fade away, which is sad, but I think it's true.
Yeah, speaking from my own experience, it's quite hard to manage that. I mean, we talked about it earlier about RepRap Discount, for example, a company from China who's selling RepRap hardware in masses. They often try to reach out to the developers and try to find a deal on royalties, but often the developer is not responsive or he doesn't trust them, and then they just start manufacturing anyways.
Yeah. Well, the open hardware community still evolves. Open hardware is a new thing. So we are still trying to find the ways how to work with the companies and stuff like that. But RepRap Discount is a really nice company, and I got royalties from them, and all of the developers get royalties from them. So they are nice. Hopefully, all of the companies would be like that, but unfortunately, it's not. Anyway,
it's also a problem as a vendor. If you start giving royalties to certain developers and fund their coding time and stuff, everybody else profits from it. So if there are other competitors in the market who underbeats your price anyway, and they don't do this, they are not ethical about it, it worsens your problem because you are funding their competitiveness and their
but from the point of open source developer, I don't always care if I get the royalties from the company who is making my stuff. For me, it's enough if they credit the sources or credit the original designs and they follow the licenses. You know, because when I share it, usually what I get from it is some kind of name or brand from it. And if they remove that, they steal everything I get from it. I don't expect anybody paying me royalties, but well, the worst thing is if they don't, if they erase the logos and the names, which happen quite often. You can find the i3s, the printer I showed at the beginning, without the logos and stating that it's their own design. But I don't want to get here into depression from somebody stealing. I would say last few words, which would be more positive.
One last question before your last words come in.
Okay.
What's your favorite sharing platform? I mean, I followed what you did with Thingiverse when they messed it up big time in your eyes.
Okay.
So what's your current platform? Where are you sharing your drawings, your STL files?
I do share everything on GitHub.
Okay. So what do you think about Umagine from Ultimaking?
Well, those sites for sharing models, they are really nice. I don't use them much, but they are mostly for simple object. But if it's complex project where you need multiple developers working on it and you have forks, which means different versions coming out of it, it's not really convenient to use a site like that if you don't have, you know, Git backend, and you can't work or merge. Well, I don't want to get too specific because most of the guys don't know what GitHub is. So anyway, what I wanted to say is that, well, RepRap is open source 3D printer. It works. It's one of the most used, and it proves that open hardware can work. So if you are interested in that, please do some of the research, and I will be happy if you meet me somewhere here. We can talk about it, and I could help you out with something. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Joseph.